Have you ever really stopped to think about what it takes to do something as simple as lifting a cup of coffee? I mean, it feels totally effortless, almost automatic, right? But behind that one simple action is one of the most elegant, intricate biological systems you can possibly imagine. So today, we are exploring the blueprint of your body's motor system, the incredible architecture of movement. It really all boils down to this one single fascinating question. How does that simple intention in your mind, I want to take a step, actually transform into a physical reality? That is the exact journey we are going on today, from that initial spark all the way to the final action. And this quote? It just nails it. It perfectly sets the stage. See, movement isn't just some random jumble of wires and muscles firing off. No, it's a beautifully designed system, a perfectly coordinated sequence where every single component has an absolutely critical role to play. Okay, let's dive right in. Our journey begins where every single voluntary movement is born, deep inside the brain, the ultimate command center. The best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a super high-speed communication network. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to trace one single message, one electrical signal, as it travels all the way from the brain down and out to the muscle. And here it is. Here's our roadmap. This is the exact path that signal is going to take. It all kicks off in the cortex, then travels down two different types of neurons. It has to cross a teeny tiny gap, and then, finally, it arrives at the muscle. 5 distinct stages, each one perfectly handing off the message to the next. So first stop is right here, the motor cortex. It's the specific strip of your brain, right in the frontal lobe, and it is the undisputed mission control for movement. This is where your decision to move gets translated into the very first electrical command. And this is where it gets really wild. The way the motor cortex is organized, it isn't just a simple one-to-one map of your body. Instead, it's this strange, distorted representation called a motor homunculus. Body parts that need super fine, precise control, like your hands and your lips, they take up a massive amount of real estate in the brain. It's not about physical size at all. It's all about skill. All right, so our signal has been generated up in the motor cortex. Now it's time for that message to leave the brain and start its journey down the great neural highway. Now, this highway is made of 2 types of messengers. Think of the upper motor neurons as the long-haul truckers, okay? They're carrying the message all the way from the brain way down into the spinal cord. Then, the lower motor neurons, they're like the local delivery drivers. They pick up that message and take it on the final leg of its journey, straight to the muscle itself. And this path is incredibly specific. The signal zips down a major tract through the brainstem, and that's where something amazing happens. Most of the fibers literally cross over to the opposite side of the body. This is it. This is the exact reason why the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, and the right side controls the left. It's a fundamental feature of our architecture. So once the signal arrives in the spinal cord, it gets handed off. The lower motor neuron takes over, sending its own signal out from the safety of the spine, out into the body, and heading straight for its target muscle. This is the final, crucial link from the central nervous system. And this right here is the secret to how our body manages both immense power and incredible precision. See, a single lower motor neuron and all the muscle fibers it's in charge of, that's called a motor unit. To make tiny, delicate movements, your brain activates just a few small motor units. But for big, powerful actions, it recruits the large ones. It's just an incredibly efficient way to scale force. So our signal is now just microns away from its final destination. We've arrived at the critical transfer point. You could call it the final handshake between the nervous system and the muscular system. But here's the catch. They don't actually touch. There's this tiny, microscopic gap separating the end of the nerve from the surface of the muscle. This gap is called the neuromuscular junction, and it presents a huge problem. How on earth does an electrical signal jump across empty space? Well, the short answer is it doesn't. It translates. The electrical signal arrives and triggers the release of a chemical messenger. That chemical just floats across the gap, binds to receptors on the other side, and that action creates a brand new electrical signal right there in the muscle. It's this beautiful, lightning-fast conversion from electrical to chemical and right back to electrical. The message has been delivered. Success. Now for the final act, turning that electrical signal into real physical force and finally movement. So once that new signal spreads through the muscle fiber, it activates millions of tiny protein filaments. These proteins, they're called actin and myosin, they literally grab onto each other and pull, sliding past one another. And this massive collective action is what shortens or contracts the muscle. And that contraction is movement. But movement is so much more than just a simple on-off contraction. It's a symphony. As one muscle contracts, its opposing muscle has to relax perfectly. Your brain is constantly adjusting the force, the timing, the speed, all while getting a nonstop stream of feedback from your body about its position in space. It's this active, totally dynamic process. So, we've traced the entire journey. Why does understanding this incredible, intricate blueprint actually matter? Well, because it reveals the single most important principle of movement. And what it really shows us is the system's incredible flexibility. We use the same basic pathway for voluntary movements that we think about, like raising a hand, and for automatic ones we don't, like breathing. The cool part is we can even consciously take control of our breathing, which just shows how these systems are layered right on top of each other. When you look at this entire elegant pathway from the brain to the spinal cord, across that tiny junction and into the muscle, you start to realize that its health, its strength, its very function, it all depends on one simple, powerful concept. Communication. That's it. That's the whole game. Every single step we looked at is about passing a message clearly and efficiently. A breakdown at any point in this chain, from the command center all the way to the final delivery, it disrupts the entire system. Clear communication is, quite simply, everything. And that, of course, leads us to a final, crucial question. We've just explored the perfect blueprint for how movement is supposed to work, but what happens to the architecture when that flawless communication starts to fail? What happens when the message gets lost somewhere along the way? Now that is something to think about.